welcome to Young Turks coverage of the last presidential debate here. Thank God. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, Benjamin Dixon, Michael Shure will join us from the field later. First, Anna and Ben, welcome guys. How are you?
Doing great. Glad to be here. The final one.
Yes.
Rock and roll.
Okay, good. All right, so first of all, guys, we were, of course, supposed to have 3 presidential debates, but Donald Trump got coronavirus, and when they said, no, that's okay, we'll do a second debate anyway, it'll just have to be a virtual debate, Trump said, no, I want to spread my coronavirus to Joe Biden, as well as the 34 other Republicans I spread it to inside the White House. And they said, no, we're not gonna let you try to kill your opponent. Then of course, Trump tried to get his attorney general and the FBI director to arrest his opponent. None of that has worked, and that is why he's down by, at a minimum, 8 points nationwide, and he's in a cold sweat panic. So this, I want to talk more about the polls in a second, but this debate is being conducted for a couple of categories of Americans. One is brain dead Americans who cannot tell the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. 2, people who hate news and politics. They can tell the difference between Biden and Trump, but they just haven't paid any attention to it. It's, we almost have no time left before the election. This is the only thing they're gonna watch, and they're gonna hate it. They're thinking about watching Thursday Night Football instead, but they're just gonna peek in and then make up their mind between Biden and Trump. And there's probably a third category, but I'm not sure what it is, because if you haven't made up your mind about Donald Trump, you probably don't have much of a mind to make up. So most folks are very, very clear. But look, actually, let me be fair. There's a third category of people, which is people who've been Republicans probably their whole life, who are now teetering on the edge. They love being a Republican, it's part of their identity. But they're looking at Trump and they're like, God, he looks like a fascist. He talks like a fascist. He might be a fascist. Or fill in the blank, racist, awful person, totally incompetent. Forget all those. Like unbelievably incompetent and might endanger your health and well-being and perhaps even your life. And those guys are peeking in to see, should I do it? Should I this one time vote for a Democrat, even though it's going to ruin my whole outfit? I already got the R on the helmet and on the pom-poms. So I don't believe there's a single person who's considering voting for Biden, but wants to look at this debate to see if Trump's gonna make a good point. I might be exaggerating, but not by much. There might be 12 people in the whole country who think that. All right, that's my sense of it. Ben, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I'm right there with you, Cenk. I think that if anyone hasn't made up their mind, but at this point, I think they probably are just trying to get on Frank Luntz's panel that he always has after every debate of undecided voters. Because at this point, if you paid any attention whatsoever, you have already decided if you're going to stick with Donald Trump, despite 220,000 Americans dying of COVID-19 because of his reckless handling of it, or you're going to say we got to get rid of this guy and we had to put somebody else in there. So at this point, if they haven't made up their minds, I think it's performative at best.
Yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned Frank Luntz because he had a really devastating quote earlier today where he said, if Donald Trump wins, we should end all polling because it apparently means nothing. And the reason he's saying that is because all polling indicates he will get annihilated in this election. So if he wins, despite that, there's something so wrong with the polling, it's useless. And of course, that's not the case. But anyway, go ahead, Anna.
Yeah, so I think it really depends on how people interpret the polling, because I think that's a little bit of an issue as well. Like, people keep talking about how Biden is doing nationally, and that's all fine and dandy, but what matters is how he's performing in some of these battleground states. That's where I start getting a little uncomfortable, because in some of these battleground states, even though he's leading in some of these cases, he's within the margin of error, right? So that's part of the reason why I don't like getting overly confident, and I don't like focusing too much on how well Biden's doing nationally. You got to look at how he's doing in these battleground states as well. And it's always a bad idea to get overly confident, even then, because people in those polls say who they're going to vote for, assuming they're going to make the effort to vote. You also have to account for people who say they're gonna vote, but then don't end up voting. That's one of the other issues I have with this polling.
Yeah, not buying it. So let me explain why.
Okay.
So all the things you say are true, of course. And here
they are.
I'll further your point. In a combination of polls, Trump has retaken the lead in Ohio, okay? So that's interesting and disturbing. Now, the reason why I'm not buying it overall, even though everything you say is factual, is because the lead is still too large, okay? So we've shown that a Democrat can win a national election by 2 points at the outer edge, maybe even 3 points, and still lose the Electoral College. And okay, and add in throwing out some of the mail-in ballots, add in voter suppression, add in everything, right? And you get the 5 points. But beyond that, it's just too big a landslide. So at this point, Biden has an 8-point lead nationally in a combination of the polls that includes total junk polls like Trafalgar and Rasmussen, which just go, yeah, Trump by 17, yeah, that's what we think, right? I mean, it's absurd.
Leading by 17?
Yeah, I'm kidding. It's hyperbole, but not by much, okay? Trafalgar is nowhere near the other polls. They're off by 10, 15 points.
I don't even know, what is that? I've never even heard of that in my life.
It's a right-wing polling operation that's just silly. And they're trying to make it seem like Trump has a chance so that if Trump wants to steal the election, he can say, well, I mean, Trafalgar said I was winning by 1 in Ohio, right? So that's the point. And Rasmussen is not much better, but Trafalgar is so absurd that they make Rasmussen look moderate. And by the way, those two are way worse than Fox News' polls. So, I mean, they give you a sense of the spectrum. So anyway, 8 points is landslide by any definition. But if you say nationally it doesn't matter, of course it's state by state, but that trickles down to all the states. So hence, Joe Biden still has a comfortable lead in North Carolina. So look, we got all these things and oh my God, there's hubbub and what's gonna happen and the militias and the mail-in ballots, etc. But there's also an excellent chance that early on election night, we tell you, Joe Biden has won the state of North Carolina. This election's over, instantly over, gone, done. Because there is no scenario where Biden wins North Carolina and Trump not only wins, but doesn't get landslided. There is no scenario where North Carolina does not equal a landslide. And so, look, Trump has to win Ohio, okay, all right, you throw in Trafalgar, Fox News, etc., and he's in a combination of the polls, including the other legitimate polls. Okay, Trump's up by a little bit in Ohio if you look at Real Clear Politics Today. But Biden still has a lead in Florida. Trump has to win Ohio, Florida. He has to win all of Arizona, North Carolina. He has to hold those, obviously Georgia, Texas. He has to hold all those. And then on top of that, he then has to go win either Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, or Michigan. He's way down in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So that's why Frank Luntz says, if Trump wins and it's legitimate, then polling means nothing because the polling indicates he's gonna get crushed. And guys, I wanna say one other thing. Look, I'm the last person to tell you guys to get complacent. My hair was on fire in 2016. We've gone over that a million times, right? And don't get complacent. He wins if you vote. If you don't vote, he doesn't win, obviously, right? Now, having said that, there's so many other factors going on his side, which I'll get to later in the night. But guys, the reason why we have to make it clear that Biden has a massive lead is because if Trump tries to cheat, he's gonna pretend the race was close. And the race ain't close. The top Republican pollster in the country is saying he's gonna get obliterated, right? So when we say the race is close, which isn't true, we could be potentially helping Trump's talking point after the election if he's going to try to steal it. And at this point, stealing it is basically, definitively his best chance. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's gonna have to jump in there pretty with a significant plan to steal this. When you consider how many people have voted early, how many mail-in ballots we have, like records are being broken all across the country, and a lot of people are circumventing the plan of the Boogaloo Boys, the Proud Boys, Roger Stone, and the 2020 version of the Brooks Brothers riots that they've been planning. They've circumvented that by doing a lot of early voting. So I think even with all of Donald Trump's best shenanigans that he has laid out, I don't think he's going to be able to overcome the early voting if people continue early voting, like you mentioned, Cenk.
Yeah, and I'll go further. Look, in 2016, about 136 million people voted. Right now, the analysis shows that over 150 million people are going to vote in this election. Okay, minimum is the lowest end of the range is 144 million. Okay, now remember, Trump won by this much, by a minuscule amount, 78,000 people in 3 states. 39,000 of them flip and he loses it. 39,000 in a country of 330 million people is nothing. It's never been that microscopic before. And so overall in the country. Okay, so he won, this is my favorite fact about the 2016 election. He won 81% of the white evangelical vote, but most importantly, 85% of white evangelicals showed up to vote in 2016. Okay, so let's say 95%. By the way, 85% is a preposterous record. I mean, that's unbelievable that 85% of any demographic would show up to vote. And he won them overwhelmingly. And he still squeaked it out. But this time, even if 105% of white evangelicals showed up and they all voted for Trump, he'd still lose because the voter turnout, my point about the voter turnout is that the Republicans and Trump are great at getting their side to turn out. They're gonna turn out. Don't get complacent about that. There's no question the Republicans are gonna turn out, right? But the massive increase in voter turnout indicates more Democrats are turning out, because that's not guaranteed. That doesn't normally happen. So how is the guy who won by a 78,000 vote margin going to overcome 8 to 12 to 15 million extra voters? It just, and okay, so I'll say, look, let's talk about his brief surge for a second. So this did not get really commented on much at all by the press, but Trump had a little bit of a bump up over the last week or so, right? My theory on that is that people saw him recover from coronavirus and they're like, some that are independent, some that are undecided, looked at it and went, oh, maybe he was right about coronavirus not being a big deal. He's 74 years old, he recovered really easily. Maybe he was right? And maybe they're overhyping it, maybe I'll go to Trump, right? The problem with Trump is he can't help himself. All he's done since then is continue to punch himself in the face. Walking out of the 60 Minutes interview, looking like an idiot, handing in 1,000 pages that are all blank as his healthcare plan. Not, just being wild in every imaginable way, demanding that his opponent be arrested over and over and over again. So if you really are an independent and you're not MAGA, you gotta be thinking, really? Do we really wanna arrest Joe Biden before the election? So whatever momentum he might have had that he could have used there, I think as usual, he's bungled it because he's a serial bungler. So look, let me ask you guys this. Turning to the debate now. What do you expect from tonight? We know that they're gonna mute the mics of the person not answering the 2-minute window, right? Is Trump gonna try to shout past the dead mic? He probably doesn't even know what that means, although it's about TV, so that's the one thing he might know. Although I have some amazing stories that I'm not authorized to say, but anyway, that was a weird cryptic response. But all right,
yeah.
No, I know something that a source told me that he didn't tell me that I could say, so I can't say it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thanks for letting us know about that.
Yeah, I know. But like basically, even on TV, I can say this. Even on TV, he doesn't even know what equipment is what. You have no idea how low his IQ is. So Ben, what do you expect tonight from the debate?
I'm actually hoping that he does try to scream over a dead mic and that the camera is still focused on him, because I think that's just the next level in his absurdity. And it actually, it backfires on him because he robs Joe Biden of the opportunity to have a gaffe. And for better or for worse, Joe Biden has always been a gaffe machine. But with Donald Trump trying to dominate the conversation, he really robs him of it. And if the microphone is cut off on top of that, then it's going to be quite the spectacle to see on television.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ben, I hadn't thought of the visual component of that. Like this angry old man yelling at Joe Biden as he's trying to answer the questions or participate in the debate. I mean, knowing Donald Trump, I wouldn't be surprised if he tried to do that. The thing that I am actually a little worried about, though, is while we might not be able to hear Donald Trump attempt to interrupt Joe Biden as he's answering questions, Joe Biden can hear him. And so I'm worried that it's going to distract him. He's not very good at debating. I mean, he's known for that. He's notorious for that. And so I'm just worried that it's going to distract him as he's trying his best to, answer the questions from his perspective and provide, reasons for why he would be better for Donald Trump. So we'll see how it plays out. What I do know is that Donald Trump during these debates is especially amped up. He's very aggressive. He's, as we know, very thin-skinned, and lately he's been furious with people around him who have been refusing to announce these sham investigations into the Bidens. He's angry at his FBI director, Christopher Wray. He's angry with his own attorney. He's disappointed with his attorney general, William Barr. So he's on edge right now, and I'm really curious to see how it's gonna play out, because I think if the first debate was bad in terms of his own behavior, I think this debate is probably gonna be worse because he's super salty about the fact that their mics are gonna be cut off as the other person is talking. He hates that. So we'll see what he's gonna try to pull tonight.
Yeah. So they've of course already attacked the moderator preemptively. Because why not? Because all they ever do is cry, right? They just nonstop crying. The moderator's unfair to me. I'm a Fox News moderator, but even he was unfair to me. Okay, all right. I don't know how long he's gonna keep crying. So the answer is forever.
It's so embarrassing.
Yeah, I do know.
So alpha male.
Yeah, I know, right? No, Joe, you guys are betas, we're alphas. That's why we cry all the time. This is so unfair to me. All right, anyways. As you can tell, our debate coverage a little different than cable news. And I'm going to thank you guys because you're putting it together in a second. But I also want to tell you about a debate surprise that Trump unleashed just a little while ago. But look, we're on everywhere, including Twitch. And so I want to thank folks who gifted subs to other people, because what a wonderful community we have. Lieutenant Mac McGee gave 30 subs. That's amazing. Obi-Mom Kenobi is a legend. She gave another sub today. And Kinna Wolf, which is badass, gave 2 subs. So you can check us out on Twitch at twitch.tv/TYT. I'm gonna read some quick upgrades here. The upgrades are fun. On YouTube channel membership, you hit the join button below to either get a membership or upgrade it. So Mommy Pearl, Rosie Karuna, Stephen Ficky, Shelly Goldenberg, Utter Bullspit, Lil Tunechi Mohamed, all upgraded. So you're awesome. And that's gonna help you later tonight because we have a post game at the very end of the analysis where we give extra to our members because they make this show possible. I'll read more of those names as we go along. Now, the debate surprise is they brought in a Biden business associate. That's what they claim. Who knows? Maybe it's Trump's cousin. No one, although Trump's cousins hate him too. So I don't know who it is. But he's now claiming that, oh yeah, Biden and Hunter Biden and his brother and the other dude Bob and everybody had this secret deal with China and he knows all about it. The good news is that Trump is such a notorious pathological liar that I think the entire country, including MAGA, are like, oh, that's obviously a lie. But anyway, oh yeah, let's come on. Oh yeah, Biden with the Chinese, right? So
it's so dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I comment on that real quick? Trump, I mean, if you just focus on what he's doing strategy-wise in this campaign, you realize he has no other tricks up his sleeve. Like, he's a one-trick pony. Everything that he did in 2016, he's just trying to mirror in 2020. Right. So remember, in one of the debates, Donald Trump brought on in the audience women who had accused Bill Clinton of some terrible stuff. And so this is, his attempt at doing something similar with Joe Biden. He's been calling Joe Biden a criminal without articulating in any way what type of criminal activity Biden has engaged in. He just keeps saying that Biden's corrupt. Okay, well, fine, Biden's corrupt. How? What exactly are you referring to when you say he's corrupt? Because it's very easy to point to specific examples of all the ways in which Donald Trump is corrupt, right? And look, if you want to be fair, you can point to campaign cash, the fact that Biden has taken money from big dollar donors, but that's what Trump has done as well. So what way is Biden corrupt, and how is he more corrupt than you are? How is there more nepotism toward his son than how you've treated your own family members? They're serving in the White House as we speak. Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, the whole narrative coming from Trump and all the tricks that he's trying to pull right now are very similar to what he did in 2016. And I think, look, for me personally, I'm fatigued. I'm tired of all of this stuff. Like, I'm tired of tonight, but it's my job. I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna share my thoughts. I'm gonna do me, right? But overall, I think the American people who don't have to cover this debate are sick of this stuff, and they just want to go back to normalcy. I think that's where the majority of the appeal is for Biden, unfortunately. But other than that, I think people are just tired and they want some leadership. I think that's what people want at the end of the day.
Yeah, so of course, Donald Trump has a secret Chinese bank account. So whatever he accuses Biden of, he of course has done it himself, but 10 times worse in reality. And Obama pointed that out in his one rally for Biden. Anyway, we'll get back to that in a second. And then before we take the break, let me just tell you two other fun things. Frank Luntz, again, the top Republican pollster, said the Hunter Biden strategy is one of the worst political strategies he's ever seen. He's like, it's not moving the numbers at all. No one cares. This is not like hey, I'm offended by it. No, I'm looking at the numbers. No one cares. You're randomly attacking his son that has nothing to do with anything. It's such a bad strategy. Even Mike Huckabee, who's a total Trump loyalist, came out and was like, why are we talking about Hunter Biden?
Yeah. You know why it's a bad strategy? Because look, Biden has lost two of his children. Two of his children have died, and the only child that remains is Hunter Biden. And I think most people get grossed out when the family members of politicians get targeted. You get what I'm saying? And it's particularly disgusting when Hunter Biden is being attacked by Trump and his cronies specifically for political purposes, with the full knowledge that Biden has gone through these tragedies with his two other children in the past. Like, the whole thing is gross, and I think it does turn a lot of people off.
Yeah, just to be perfectly accurate, he still has Ashley Biden is still alive as well. So he's two kids that are alive, two that have passed away. Okay, that's all right. We got to take a break, guys. When we come back, some more important points right before the speech, or the debate, and in the debate we're gonna do play-by-play. So share the stream, like the stream, it makes a big difference, and let's all watch this together. And I get what Anna's saying about some people are tired of it, right? But wouldn't it be amazing, and it is very likely, that this is the last time that we're gonna see Trump in a debate or in a political arena? That's exciting. Okay, all right, we'll be right back. All right, back on the Young Turks coverage of the presidential election. So the guy that they brought on, obviously Cenk Uygur, Kasparian, Benjamin, Dixon. We're going to be joined by Michael Shure a little bit later from the field. Anyway, the guy they brought on right before the debate to say that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden are corrupt and are working with the Chinese. It's a guy named Tony Bobulinski, and he was framed as a guy who worked with Joe Biden and was Joe Biden's business partner of a sort. You read into it, you're gonna be shocked to find out that's not the case. It turns out that he was dealing with Hunter Biden, and I'll remind folks that that was at a point when Hunter Biden was going through addiction issues, right? So now they bring out the guy that was with Hunter when he was going through those issues. And they're like, Bobolinsky over here. Tony says Hunter and Joe they had a deal. There was a deal with the Chinese. Oh, okay. Did Rudy Giuliani also back it up? Anyway.
You know what, let's also not forget that attacking Hunter Biden for his addiction issues might seem like an old school political trick that would work, but we're still grappling with an opioid epidemic, right? So there are a lot of people, many of whom are the type of voters who would support like someone like Donald Trump, right? Who probably don't like that kind of messaging, demonizing people who are struggling with serious addiction. I don't know, that's just my take. I could be wrong on that, but it's just attacking your political opponent's son because of his, issues with addiction is just not really a well-played strategy, especially right now when we're dealing with an epidemic. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's 100% right. All right, look, as soon as it's 9 o'clock Eastern, as soon as the debate starts, we will go to it and we're gonna do play-by-play of it. And by the way, like and share the stream. There's a lot of ways that people can watch the debate, but there's only one way that they're gonna get play-by-play from a progressive channel that's gonna tell you the truth and about everything that both sides are saying, right? So. Sorry, John won't be on tonight to eat popcorn while watching, but Dragon Squad is representing nonetheless, and we'll do some reactions in the breaks when there's a quick little break, 3-5 second break. Throughout, and then at the end, of course, analysis of what you just saw. Now, before the debate starts, let me thank the people who put it on, put this show on, which is you guys. These are folks who just signed up for YouTube channel membership by hitting the join button below. Sarah K, Dyrus J, Matthew Dillard, Stephen Fickey, Jimmy Trash, Renee Brown, Charles Cantrell, Here's Dingens, Beth Rose, Rob Shively, Kim Rickman, Ali Leja, Linda Medina, Zachary Bosanet, Gosselin, Jordan Watkins, Deanna Leonard, Catherine Rodier, Jeff Creel, and Patrick the Butcher. Okay, so even the butcher's in the house and we're all ready to go. All my rowdy friends are here on a Thursday night. And we'll try to read more of your names as the night goes on. If you're not watching on YouTube, tyt.com/join. You become a member, you support the show, you get our message out there, you make our voice louder. Plus, you get our extra post-game coverage, including the one we're gonna do after the debate as well. And one thing else that I got to tell you guys about is that we are trying to keep Young Turks healthy and sustainable. The other way that we're doing that is through our fundraising drive that's happening this year. So it's at tyt.com/go. We were trying to get $70,000 by the end of tonight. I think the last we checked in, we were around 67,500. I will give you an update on that as we go. But if you like what we're saying, if you like having a progressive beacon out there in the media, fighting back against the rest of the corporate media, and being unapologetically progressive, then we're your Huckleberry, and we all do this together. So when you contribute at tyt.com/go, that means you're one of the Young Turks. All right, so I'm surprised it hasn't started yet. I think it's gonna start any second now. But I think, guys, the only possible thing in here, I'll knock on wood, that could make a difference tonight is if Joe Biden has some sort of health issue. But and Anna, you said he was not known for being a good debater. He's actually known as a medium level debater, a 6 or a 7, not a 5 or a 4.
Listen, Cenk, Epic Politics man himself said that Joe Biden is known for not being a good debater. So if Michael Shure says it, it must be true. Well, and from what I've seen, he's not that great of a debater. Let's just keep it real, come on.
Yeah, we have diversity of opinions here, and Michael Shure, his longtime hero in politics has been Joe Biden. So I hear you on that. All right, let's go to Kristen Welker here, the moderator of the debate.
University in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Kristen Welker of NBC News, and I welcome you to the final 2020 presidential debate between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. Tonight's debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. It is conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Commission's health security advisor. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, boos, or other interruptions, except right now, as we welcome to the stage former Vice President Joe Biden and President Donald J. Trump.
The audience is ecstatic that they were not at the first debate where Donald Trump was spreading coronavirus. They're happy that they got a ticket to the third debate instead. Looking forward to what Trump's strategy here is. By the way, clue,
and I do want to say a very good evening to both of you. This debate will cover 6 major topics. At the beginning of each section, each candidate will have 2 minutes uninterrupted to answer my first question. The debate commission will then turn on their microphone only when it is their turn to answer, and the commission will turn it off exactly when the 2 minutes have expired. After that, both microphones will remain on, but on behalf of the voters, I'm going to ask you to please speak one at a time. The goal is for you to hear each other and for the American people to hear every word of what you both have to say. And so with that, if you're ready, let's start. And we will begin with the fight against the coronavirus. President Trump, the first question is for you. The country is heading into a dangerous new phase. More than 40,000 Americans are in the hospital tonight with COVID, including record numbers here in Tennessee. And since the two of you last shared a stage, 16,000 Americans have died from COVID. So please be specific. How would you lead the country during this next stage of the coronavirus crisis? 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So, as you know, 2.2 million people modeled out were expected to die. We closed up the greatest economy in the world in order to fight this horrible disease that came from China. It's a worldwide pandemic. It's all over the world. You see the spikes in Europe and many other places right now. If you notice, the mortality rate is down 85%. The excess mortality rate is way down and much lower than almost any other country. And we're fighting it, and we're fighting it hard. There is a spike. There was a spike in Florida, and it's now gone. There was a very big spike in Texas. It's now gone. There was a very big spike in Arizona. It's now gone. And there are some spikes and surges in other places. They will soon be gone. We have a vaccine that's coming. It's ready. It's going to be announced within weeks, and it's going to be delivered. We have Operation Warp Speed, which is the military is going to distribute the vaccine. I can tell you from personal experience that I was in the hospital. I had it, and I got better. And I will tell you that I had something that they gave me, a therapeutic, I guess they would call it. Some people could say it was a cure. But I was in for a short period of time, and I got better very fast, or I wouldn't be here tonight. And now they say I'm immune, whether it's 4 months or a lifetime. Nobody's been able to say that, but I'm immune. More and more people are getting better. We have a problem that's a worldwide problem. This is a worldwide problem. But I've been congratulated by the heads of many countries on what we've been able to do. If you take a look at what we've done in terms of goggles and masks and gowns and everything else, and in particular ventilators, we're now making ventilators all over the world, thousands and thousands a month, distributing them all over the world. It will go away, and as I say, we're rounding the turn, we're rounding the corner. It's going away.
Okay, former Vice President Biden, to you, how would you lead the country out of this crisis? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
220,000 Americans dead. If you hear nothing else I say tonight, hear this. Anyone who's responsible for not taking control, in fact, not saying I take no responsibility initially. Anyone who's responsible for that many deaths should not remain as President of the United States of America. We're in a situation where there are 1,000 deaths a day now, 1,000 deaths a day. And there are over 70,000 new cases per day. Compared to what's going on in Europe, As the New England Medical Journal said, they're starting from a very low rate. We're starting from a very high rate. The expectation is we'll have another 200,000 Americans dead between now and the end of the year. If we just wore these masks, the president's own advisors have told him, we could save 100,000 lives. And we're in a circumstance where the president thus far and still has no plan, no comprehensive plan. What I would do is make sure we have everyone encouraged to wear a mask all the time. I would make sure we move in the direction of rapid testing, investing in rapid testing. I would make sure that we set up national standards as to how to open up schools and open up businesses so they can be safe and give them the wherewithal, the financial resources to be able to do that. We're in a situation now where the New England Medical Journal, one of the most serious journals in the whole world, said for the first time ever that the way this president has responded to this crisis has been absolutely tragic. And so, folks, I will take care of this. I will end this. I will make sure we have a plan.
Goggles,
Trump,
what the hell is goggles?
Follow up with you and your comments. You talked about taking a therapeutic. I assume you're referencing Regeneron. You also said a vaccine will be coming within weeks.
Yes.
Is that a guarantee?
No, it's not a guarantee, but it will be by the end of the year. But I think it has a good chance. There are two companies, I think, within a matter of weeks, and it will be distributed very quickly.
Can you tell us which companies?
Johnson & Johnson is doing very well. Moderna is doing very well. Pfizer is doing very well. And we have numerous others. Then we also have others that we're working on very closely with other countries, in particular Europe.
Let me follow up with you, because
company
this is
that makes
new
goggles,
information.
they're doing very
The
well.
vaccine is coming soon, within weeks now. Your own officials say it could take well into 2021 at the earliest for enough Americans to get vaccinated. And even then, they say the country will be wearing masks and distancing into 2022. Is your timeline realistic?
No, I think my timeline is going to be more accurate. I don't know that they're counting on the military the way I do, but we have our generals lined up, one in particular that's the head of logistics, and this is a very easy distribution for him. He's ready to go as soon as we have the vaccine, and we expect to have 100 million vials. As soon as we have the vaccine, he's ready to go.
Vice President Biden, your reaction, and just 40% of Americans say they would definitely agree to take a coronavirus vaccine if it was approved by the government. What steps would you take to give Americans confidence in a vaccine if it were approved?
Make sure it's totally transparent. Have the scientists of the world see it, know it, look at it, go through all the processes. And by the way, this is the same fellow who told you this is going to end by Easter last time. This is the same fellow who told you that, don't worry, we're going to end this by the summer. We're about to go into a dark winter. And he has no clear plan, and there's no prospect that there's going to be a vaccine available for the majority of the American people before the middle of next year.
President Trump, your reaction, he says you have no plan.
We're going to have a dark winter at all. We're opening up our country. We've learned and studied and understand the disease, which we didn't at the beginning. When I closed and banned China from coming in heavily infected, and then ultimately Europe. But China was in January. Months later, he was saying I was xenophobic. I did it too soon. Now he's saying, oh, I should have, moved quicker. But he didn't move quicker. He was months behind me, many months behind me. And
he's not in charge.
He ran the H1N1 swine flu, and it was a total disaster, far less lethal, but it was a total disaster. Had that had this kind of numbers, 700,000 people would be dead right now, but it was a far less lethal disease. Look, his own person who ran that for him, who, as you know, was his chief of staff, said it was catastrophic. It was horrible. We didn't know what we were doing. Now he comes up and he tells us how to do this. Also, everything that he said about the way every single move that he said we should make, that's what we've done. We've done all of it. But he was way behind us.
Vice President Biden, your response.
He's 4 years behind you in becoming president. It's true.
Not because he shut down access from China. And he did it late after 40 countries had already done that. In addition to that, what he did, he made sure that we had 44 people that were in there in China trying to get to Wuhan to determine what exactly the source was. What did the president say in January? He said, no, he said, he's being transparent. The president of China is being transparent. We owe him a debt of gratitude. We have to thank him. And then what happened was We started talking about using the Defense Act to make sure we go out and get whatever is needed out there to protect people. And again, I go back to this. He had nothing. He did virtually nothing. And then he gets out of the hospital and he talks about don't worry, it's all going to be over soon. Come on. There's not another serious scientist in the world who thinks it's going to be over soon.
President Trump,
That's
your
malarkey.
reaction?
I say over soon. I say we're learning to live with it. We have no choice. We can't lock ourselves up in a basement like Joe does. He has the ability to lock himself up. I don't know. He's obviously made a lot of money someplace, but he has this thing about living in a basement. People can't do that. By the way, I, as the president, couldn't do that. I'd love to put myself in the basement or in a beautiful room in the White House and go away for a year and a half.
You did. That's why we call you Bunker.
And because every meeting I had, and I'd meet a lot of families, including Gold Star families and military families. Every meeting I had, and I had to meet them. I had to. It would be horrible to have canceled everything. I said, this is dangerous, and you catch it. And I caught it. I learned a lot. Great doctors, great hospitals, and now I recovered. 99.9% of young people recover. 99% of people recover. We have to recover. We can't close up our nation. We have to open our school, and we can't close up our nation, or you're not going to have a nation.
And of course, the CDC has said young people can get sick with COVID-19 and can pass it. Vice President Biden, I want to talk broadly about strategy, though.
Can I respond to that?
30 seconds, please, and then I have a question.
No, number one, he says that we're learning to live with it. People are learning to die with it. You folks home will have an empty chair at the kitchen table this morning.
Good line.
That man or wife going to bed tonight and reaching over to try to touch out of habit where their wife or husband is gone. Learning to live with it. Come on. We're dying with it because he's never said, you said it's dangerous. When's the last time? Is it really dangerous still? Are we dangerous? You tell the people it's dangerous now? What should they do about the danger? And you say, I take no responsibility.
Let me talk about your two.
Excuse me, I take full responsibility. It's not my fault that he came here. It's China's fault. And
That's not taking responsibility.
That he came here either. It's China's fault. They kept it from going into the rest of China for the most part, but they didn't keep it from coming out to the world, including Europe and ourselves.
Vice President Biden.
The fact is that when we knew it was coming, when it hit, what happened? What did the president say? He said, don't worry, it's going to go away. Be gone by Easter. Don't worry, the warm weather. Don't worry, maybe inject bleach. He said he was kidding when he said that, but a lot of people thought it was serious. A whole range of things the president has said. Even today, he thinks we are in control. We're about to lose 200,000 more people.
President Trump.
Look, perhaps just to finish this, I was kidding on that, but just to finish this, when I closed, he said I shouldn't have closed. And that went on for months. Nancy Pelosi said the same thing. She was dancing on the streets in Chinatown in San Francisco. But when I closed, he said, this is a terrible thing. You're xenophobic. I think he called me racist even. And because I was closing it to China. Now he says I should have closed it earlier. Joe, it doesn't work.
I didn't say either of those things.
You certainly did.
I talked about a xenophobia in a different context. It wasn't about closing the border to Chinese coming to the United States.
All right, I want to talk about both of your different strategies to handling
He thought I shouldn't have closed the border. Well, that's obvious.
Do you want to respond to that quickly, Vice President Biden? Okay. Let's talk about your different strategies toward dealing with this. Mr. Vice President, you suggested you would support new shutdowns if scientists recommended it. What do you say to Americans who are fearful that the cost of shutdowns, the impact on the economy, the higher rates of hunger, depression, domestic and substance abuse outweighs the risk of exposure to the virus?
What I would say is I'm going to shut down the virus, not the country. It's his ineptitude that caused the country to have to shut down in large part. Why businesses have gone under, why schools are closed, why so many people have lost their living, and why they're concerned. Those other concerns are real. That's why he should have been, instead of in a sand trap at his golf course, he should have been negotiating with Nancy Pelosi and the rest of the Democrats and Republicans about what to do about the acts they were passing for billions of dollars to make sure people had the capacity.
But you haven't ruled out more shutdowns.
Well, no, I'm not shutting down the nation, but they need standards. The standard is if you have a reproduction rate in a community that's above a certain level, everybody says, slow up. more social distancing. Do not open bars and do not open gymnasiums. Do not open until you get this under control, under more control. But when you do open, give the people the capacity to be able to open and have the capacity to do it safely. For example, schools. Schools, they need a lot of money to open. They need to deal with ventilation systems. They need to deal with smaller classes, more teachers, more pods. And he's refused to support that money, or at least up to now.
Let's talk about
Trump
schools.
looks like he's ready to blow.
I have to respond if I might.
Please, and then I have a follow-up.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Look, all he does is talk about shutdowns, but forget about him. His Democrat governors, Cuomo in New York, you look at what's going on in California, you look at Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Democrats all, they're shut down so tight and they're dying. They're dying. And he supports all these people. All he talks about is shutdowns. No, we're not going to shut down, and we have to open our schools. And it's like, as an example, I have a young son. He also tested positive. By the time I spoke to the doctor the second time, he was fine. It just went away. Young people, I guess it's their immune system.
Let me follow up with you, President Trump. You've demanded schools open in person and insist they can do it safely. But just yesterday, Boston became the latest city to move its public school system entirely online after a coronavirus spike. What is your message to parents who worry that sending their children to school will endanger not only their kids, but also their teachers and families?
I want to open the schools. The transmittal rate to the teachers is very small, but I want to open the schools.
Come on, man.
We have to open our country. We're not going to have a country. You can't do this. We can't keep this country closed. This is a massive country with a massive economy. People are losing their jobs. They're committing suicide. There's depression, alcohol, drugs at a level that nobody's ever seen before. There's abuse, tremendous abuse. We have to open our country. You know, I've said it often. The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself. And that's what's happening. And he wants to close down. He'll close down the country if one person in our massive bureaucracy says we should close it down.
Vice President Biden, your response.
Simply not true. We ought to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We ought to be able to safely open, but when they need resources to open. You need to be able to, for example, if you're going to open a business, have social distancing within the business. You need to have, if you have a restaurant, you need to have plexiglass dividers so people cannot infect one another. You need to be in a position where you can take testing rapidly and know whether a person is in fact infected. You need to be able to trace. You need to be able to provide all the resources that are needed to do this. And that is not inconsistent with saying that what we're going to make sure that we open safely. And by the way, all you teachers out there, not that many of you are going to die, so don't worry about it. So don't worry about it. Come on.
President Trump, let me follow up with you quickly.
By the way, I will say this. If you go and look at what's
He came to play.
It's a ghost town. It's a ghost town. And when you talk about plexiglass, these are restaurants that are dying. These are businesses with no money. Putting up plexiglass is unbelievably expensive, and it's not the answer. I mean, you're going to sit there in a cubicle wrapped around with plastic. These are businesses that are dying, Joe. You can't do that to people. You just can't. Take a look at New York and what's happened to my wonderful city for so many years. I loved it. It was vibrant. It's dying. Everyone's leaving New York.
Take a look at what New York has done in terms of turning the curve down in terms of the number of people dying. And I don't look at this in terms of the way he does. Blue states and red states. They're all the United States. And look at the states that are having such a spike in the coronavirus. They're the red states. They're the states in the Midwest. They're the states in the upper Midwest. That's where the spike is occurring significantly. But they're all Americans. They're all Americans. And what we have to do is say, wear these masks, number one. Make sure we get the help that the businesses need that has money's already been passed to do that. It's been out there since the beginning of the summer, and nothing's happened.
President, New York has lost more than 40,000 people, 11,000 people in nursing homes.
President Trump, what
when you say spike, take a look at what's happening in Pennsylvania, where they've had it closed. Take a look at what's happening with your friend in Michigan, where her husband's the only one allowed to do anything. It's been like a prison. Now it was just ruled unconstitutional. Take a look at North Carolina. They're having spikes, and they've been closed, and they're getting killed financially. We can't let that happen, Joe. You can't let that happen. We have to open up. And we understand the disease. We have to protect our seniors. We have to protect our elderly. We have to protect especially our seniors with heart problems and diabetes problems. And we will protect them. We have the best testing in the world by far. That's why we have so many cases.
Let me follow up with you before we move on to our next section. President Trump, this week you called Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's best-known infectious disease expert, quote, a disaster. You described him and other medical experts as, quote, idiots. If you're not listening to them, who are you listening to as you fight this?
I'm listening to all of them, including Anthony. I get along very well with Anthony, but he did say, don't wear masks. He did say, as you know, this is not going to be a problem. I think he's a Democrat, but that's okay. He said this is not going to be a problem. We are not going to have a problem at all. When Joe says that, I said, Anthony Fauci said, and others, and many others, and I'm not knocking him a lot. Nobody knew. Look, nobody knew what this thing was. Nobody knew where it was coming from, what it was. We've learned a lot. But Anthony said, don't wear masks. Now he wants to wear masks. Anthony also said, if you look back, exact words, here's his exact words, this is no problem. This is going to go away soon. So he's allowed to make mistakes. He happens to be a good person.
Vice President Biden, your response quickly, and then we're going to move on to the next section.
My response is that think about what the president knew in January and didn't tell the American people. He was told this was a serious virus that spread in the air, and it was much worse than the flu. He went on record and said to one of your colleagues, recorded, that in fact he knew how dangerous it was, but he didn't want to tell us. He didn't want to tell us because he didn't want us to panic. He didn't want us. Americans don't panic. He panicked. But guess what? In the meantime, we find out in the New York Times the other day that, in fact, his folks went to Wall Street and said this is a really dangerous thing. And a memo out of that meeting, not from his administration, but from some of the brokers, said sell short because we got to get moving. It's a dangerous problem.
Well, this is
I'm going to give you 30 seconds to respond, and then we're
the
going
Wall
to
Street
move
one,
on.
I don't know. Somebody went to Wall Street. You're the one that takes all the money from Wall Street. I don't take it. You have raised a lot of money.
He does, but so do you. Big time.
And
Big
every time you raise money, deals are made, Joe. I could raise so much more money. As president and as somebody that knows most of those people, I could call the heads of Wall Street, the heads of every company in America. I would blow away every record, but I don't want to do that because it puts me in a bad position. And then you bring up Wall Street. You shouldn't be bringing up Wall Street because you're the one that takes the money from Wall Street, not me. I could blow away your records that like you wouldn't believe. We don't need money. We have plenty of money. In fact, we beat Hillary Clinton with a tiny fraction of the money that she was able to.
All right, gentlemen, we're going to move on.
Don't tell me about Wall Street.
Average contribution, $43.
All right, we're going to move on to our next section, which is national security. And I do want to start with the security of our elections and some breaking news from overnight. Just last night, top intelligence officials confirmed again that both Russia and Iran are working to influence this election. Both countries have obtained U.S. voter registration information, these officials say, and Iran sent intimidating messages to Florida voters. This question goes to you, Mr. Vice President. What would you do to put an end to this threat? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
I made it clear, and I ask everyone else to take the pledge. I made it clear that any country, no matter who it is, that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay a price. And it's been overwhelmingly clear this election, I won't even get into the last one, this election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm elected. They're interfering with American sovereignty. That's what's going on right now. They're interfering with American sovereignty. And to the best of my knowledge, I don't think the president said anything to Putin about it. I don't think he's stalking them a lot. I don't think he said a word. I don't know why he hadn't said a word to Putin about it. And I don't know what he has recently said, if anything, to the Iranians. My guess is he'd probably be more outspoken with regard to the Iranians. But the point is this, folks. We are in a situation where we have foreign countries trying to interfere in the outcome of our election. His own national security advisor told him that what is happening with his buddy, I will. His buddy, Rudy Giuliani, he's being used as a Russian pawn. He's being fed information that is Russian, that is not true. And then what happens? Nothing happens. And then you find out that everything that's going on here about Russia is wanting to make sure that I do not get elected the next president of the United States, because they know I know them and they know me. I don't understand why this president is unwilling to take on Putin when he's actually paying bounties to kill American soldiers in Afghanistan, when he's engaged in activities that are trying to destabilize all of NATO. I don't know why he doesn't do it, but it's worth asking the question, why isn't that being done? Any country that interferes with us will, in fact, pay a price because they're affecting our sovereignty.
President Trump, same question to you. Let me ask the question.
Like
You're going to have 2 minutes to respond. For 2 elections in a row now, there has been substantial interference from foreign adversaries. What would you do in your next term to put an end to this? 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Well, let me respond to the first part, as Joe answered. Joe got $3.5 million from Russia, and it came through Putin because he was very friendly with the former mayor of Moscow, and it was the mayor of Moscow's wife. And you got $3.5 million. Your family got $3.5 million. And, you know, someday you're going to have to explain, why did you get $3.5? I never got any money from Russia. I don't get money from Russia. Now, about your thing last night, I knew all about that. And through John, who was,
you're the president,
who was fantastic, DNI, he said, the one thing that's common to both of them, they both want you to lose, because there has been nobody tougher to Russia. Between the sanctions, nobody tougher than me on Russia. Between the sanctions, between all of what I've done with NATO, you know, I've got the NATO countries to put up an extra $130 billion, going to $420 billion a year. That's to guard against Russia. I sold, while he was selling pillows and sheets, I sold tank busters to Ukraine. There has been nobody tougher on Russia than Donald Trump. And I'll tell you, they were so bad. They took over the submarine port. You remember that very well. During your term, during you and Barack Obama, they took over a big part of what should have been Ukraine. You handed it to them, but you were getting a lot of money from Russia. They were paying you a lot of money, and they probably still are. But now, with what came out today, it's even worse. All of the emails, the horrible emails of the kind of money that you were raking in, you and your family. And Joe, you were vice president when some of this was happening, and it should have never happened. And I think you owe an explanation to the American people. Why is it? Somebody just had a news conference a little while ago who was essentially supposed to work with you and your family, but what he said was damning. And regardless of me, I think you have to clean it up and talk to the American people. Maybe you can do it right now.
Vice President Biden, you may respond in 30 seconds. And then I do want to follow up on the election security.
I have not taken a penny from any foreign source ever in my life. We learned that this president paid 50 times the tax in China, has a secret bank account with China, does business in China, and in fact is talking about me taking money. I have not taken a single penny from any country whatsoever, ever. Number one. Number two, this is a president, I have released all of my tax returns, 22 years. Go look at them. 22 years of my tax return. You have not released a single solitary year of your tax return. What are you hiding? Why are you unwilling? The foreign countries are paying you a lot. Russia's paying you a lot. China's paying you a lot. And your hotels and all your businesses all around the country, all around the world. And China's building a new road to a new a golf course you have overseas. So what's going on here? Why don't release your tax return or stop talking about corruption?
President Trump, your response.
First of all, I called my accountants under audit. I'm going to release them as soon as we can. I want to do it, and it'll show how successful, how great this company is. But much more importantly than that, people were saying $750. I asked them a week ago, I said, what did I pay? They said, sir, you prepaid tens of millions of dollars. I prepaid my tax. Tens over the last number of years.
No.
Tens of millions of dollars I prepaid. Because at some point they think it's an estimate. They think I may have to pay tax. So I already prepaid it. Nobody told me that.
Did your accountant
Nobody told you that. Excuse me. And it wasn't written whenever they write this. They keep talking about $750, which I think is a filing fee. But let me just tell you, I prepaid millions and millions of dollars in taxes.
It's just not true.
Number one.
No.
Number two, I don't make money from China. You do. I don't make money from Ukraine.
He got more than $70 million back in a tax refund that he's now being audited for. He's such a clown.
$3.5 million, Joe. And your son gave you. They even have a statement that we have to give 10% to the big man. You're the big man, I think. I don't know. Maybe you're not. But you're the big man, I think. Your son said we have to give 10% to the big man. Joe, what's that all about? It's terrible.
All right, gentlemen, I want to ask you both some questions about all of this. I'm going to let you both respond very quickly. You just said you spoke to your accountant about potentially releasing your taxes. Did he tell you when you can release them? Do you have a deadline for when you're going to release them?
I get treated worse than the Tea Party got treated. Because I have a lot of people in there deep down in the IRS. They treat me horribly. We made a deal. It was all settled until I decide to run for president. I get treated very badly by the IRS, very unfairly. But we had a deal all done. As soon as we're completed with the deal, I want to release it. But I have paid millions and millions of dollars, and it's worse than paying. I paid in advance. It's called prepaying your taxes. I paid in advance.
I want to ask you both about questions regarding your potential foreign entanglements and questions that have been raised to give you both a chance to talk about this more broadly. Respond very quickly, and then I'll get to my question.
Why did he's been saying this for 4 years? Show us. Just show us. Stop playing around. You've been saying for 4 years you're going to release your taxes. Nobody knows, Mr. President. What they do know is you're not paying your taxes, or you're paying taxes that are so low. When last time he said what he paid, he said, I only pay that little because I'm smart. I know how to game the system. Come on. Come on, folks.
President Trump, and then I want to get to two questions to both of you on this.
I was put through a phony witch hunt for 3 years. It started before I even got elected. They spied on my campaign. No president should ever have to go through what I went through. Let me just say this. Mueller and 18 angry Democrats and FBI agents all over the place spent $48 million. They went through everything I had, including my tax returns, and they found absolutely no collusion and nothing wrong. $48 million. I guarantee you, if I spent $1 million on you, Joe, I could find plenty wrong, because the kind of things that you've done and the kind of monies that your family has taken. I mean, your brother made money in Iraq, millions of dollars. Your other brother made a fortune, and it's all through you, Joe. And they say you get some of it, and you do live very well. You have houses all over the place. You live very well.
All right, gentlemen, let me just ask some questions about all of this broadly. Vice President Biden, there have been questions about the work your son has done in China and for a Ukrainian energy company when you were vice president. In retrospect, was anything about those relationships inappropriate or unethical?
Nothing was unethical. Here's what the deal. With regard to Ukraine, we had this whole question about whether or not, because he was on the board, I later learned of a Burisma, a company, that somehow I had done something wrong. Yet every single solitary person, when he was going through his impeachment, testifying under oath who worked for him, said, I did my job impeccably. I carried out U.S. policy. Not one single solitary thing was out of line. Not a single thing. Number one. Number two, the guy who got in trouble in Ukraine was this guy trying to bribe the Ukrainian government to say something negative about me, which they would not do and did not do, because it never, ever, ever happened. My son has not made money in terms of this thing about, what are you talking about, China. I have not had it. The only guy made money from China is this guy. He's the only one. Nobody else has made money from China.
President Trump, let me ask my question to you.
But could I just one thing?
Very quickly.
His son didn't have a job for a long time, was sadly no longer in the military service. I won't get into that.
Like
he
your
didn't have
son,
a job.
who didn't even join the military?
Vice President, Burisma, not the best reputation in the world. I hear they paid him $183,000 a month. Listen to this. $183, and they gave him a $3 million upfront payment.
All right.
And he had no energy.
I'm going to let the Vice President respond to that quickly, and then I need to get to a question to you.
No basis for that. Everybody investigated that. No one said anything he did was wrong in Ukraine.
Okay, President Trump, this is for you. Since you took office, you've never divested from your business. You've personally promoted your properties abroad. A report this week, which was referenced, does indicate that your company has a bank account in China. So how can voters know that you don't have any foreign conflicts of interest?
I have many bank accounts, and they're all listed, and they're all over the place. I mean, I was a businessman doing business. The bank account you're referring to, which is, everybody knows about it, it's listed. The bank account was in 2013. That's what it was. It was opened it was closed in 2015, I believe. And then I decided, because I was thinking about doing a deal in China like millions of other people. I was thinking about it, and I decided I'm not going to do it. Didn't like it.
What?
I decided not to do it. Had an account open, and I closed it.
Okay.
Excuse me. And then, unlike him, where he's vice president and he does business, I then decided to run for president after that. That was before. So I closed it before I even ran for president.
That's not true.
Let alone became president.
That's not true.
Big difference. He is the vice president of the United States, and his son, his brother, and his other brother are getting rich. They're like a vacuum cleaner. They're sucking up money
President
every
Trump,
place
thank
he
you. We
goes.
do need to move on.
Thanks for listening to the full episode of the Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.